Before we begin the video, if you haven't yet, come on down and join my Discord server. Link is down in the description. Hey guys, welcome back for my full review of Ninjago Season 15, Seabound. So yes, this is going to be my full review, basically just unscripted thoughts and stuff. And that's about all I have to explain. Let's get started. So I'll put it simply, Seabound, in my opinion, is a great Ninjago season. One of the best. For me, this was a season I compared a lot to Master of the Mountain, which I feel like was the last great season. And I was really hoping this season would be as good or better. And I'm happy to say it is. There are a few things I really enjoy about this season. First off, it is the first solo Nia season. It was great to really see her in the focus and in the spotlight. And secondly, just in general, the storytelling of this season is superb. I honestly feel like Ninjago's storytelling has never been better. And going into 2022, I really think that is going to continue. The ending of this season is phenomenal. The start was pretty good too. The middle is definitely the weaker area, but then again, a lot of Ninjago seasons have the same issue. But let's start with the beginning of this season. Nia kind of has four distinct stories in this season. First, she can't control her powers. Then she has her story with her mother. Then she has a self-pity arc where she blames herself for Kalmar finding out where the amulet is. And then she has her final story of becoming water god. Nia's first story is introduced in the premiere. The season premiere of Seabound is really good, definitely one of the strongest Ninjago premieres. And this episode shows that Nia all of a sudden cannot control her powers as she destroys a village. This is an interesting story because she didn't just lose her powers, she still has them. They're just out of control and she is a risk to others. This was a very creative idea, done very well in episodes 1 and 2. Unfortunately, this story kind of gets forgotten about in episode 3. I really would have liked to have seen them lean more into it, but I think what we got was really creative, just not enough of it. The rest of the premiere, great. I love the inclusion of the Vegetone story, and this is what I mean by Ninjago storytelling improving. The Vegetone story started in season 13, and then we got this scene here, and the real story probably won't happen until next year, but just these hints being dropped in seasons, all leading up to this event that isn't in the next season or the next, but actually 2 years later. It's a new kind of storytelling for Ninjago, one that I'm really excited for. So yeah, Vegetone stuff, awesome. Episodes 2 and 3, they're good episodes. They're average. They're not the most exciting necessarily, but they're fine. It's nice to see more of this Maya and Nia dynamic. I do feel like Maya is kind of annoying at times, but I love that this season addresses the fact that they are not really close, and also that Maya really doesn't know how to be a great parent. They reference season 7 a few times, and really this is the necessary follow-up to Hands of Time that should have happened a while ago, but this is a good story. I think that it is a very interesting relationship between these two. The conversation about sacrifices is awesome. Episode 4 is a great episode, and especially going back to that sacrifice conversation, excellent foreshadowing. So yeah, the Nia and Maya story is good, and well, for the rest of episode 4, this episode introduces the main antagonist of Seabound, Prince Kalmar, who is basically Pythor, but yeah, Prince Kalmar is a great villain. He is personally my favorite Wild Brain villain, and let's talk about him next. First off, his voice acting is great. He just sounds so pompous, and well, as for his motives, he basically just wants to conquer the world and I guess right the wrong that was committed in history. All in all, a pretty generic motive, but understandable because after all, the first Padusi Master did colonize Ninjago. There were people there before. I feel like that is something that could have been emphasized more. He doesn't really have his own backstory, but it is kind of told through Bethamar's backstory. And, well, basically he's always wanted to unleash Wajira, but I feel like they don't really explain enough of what caused this sentiment. With Pythor, he himself was locked away, but Kalmar is getting justice for an event that happened thousands of years ago, long before he was even alive. I feel like sometimes this season simplifies things a little too much to Bethamar good, Kalmar bad. It feels like more of an issue for Bethamar because, while Kalmar being this horrible person, it's cool. It was really a cool scene to see him ruthlessly kill his father without really any hesitation. That was an excellent scene. It was a risk that very much paid off. Great to see a character die on screen instead of just, oh, jail. Originally, it doesn't seem like he's gonna kill his dad, but then he does, and originally he's gonna attack the ninja, but then he decides to throw down the spear to frame them. I really enjoy Kalmar. He isn't the most original or serious villain. He is kind of more on the cartoony side, but he's fun. He's got a great voice, a great design, and it's just really fun to see this character on screen. He isn't annoying or anything. Kalmar is kind of like Pythor, almost as good, but not as good. But I enjoy him. I guess my only complaint is in the final episodes, he just doesn't do as much. he kind of becomes irrelevant, but his death scene was really good. Now, I do feel like Kalmar and Betho, as I said, they both are kind of simplified. He's bad, Betho is good, but the difference is at least Kalmar has a story, a goal. My thoughts on Betho are, and this is kind of an unpopular opinion, he doesn't suck, but I feel like he's a very weak character. It doesn't really help that 90% of his lines are, "You will not harm my friends," and "My brother wants to unleash Wajira / chaos." But I feel like the bigger issue with this character is he just doesn't really have a goal or story. I guess technically his goal is to avenge his father, but this is barely emphasized in the season. Really, the only time he mentions Trimar is in his flashback episode, and then never again until the finale. I feel like that is the big failure with this character, how he barely mentions his father, who is clearly a significant figure in his life, as the only person who ever really cared or loved him. His other story, kind of, is the idea that he wants to become part of a family. He had family in Trimar, but after he died, he was alone again. But in episode 8, the Ninja welcome him into their family, so as you see, this story is very quickly resolved. This kind of leaves him without a goal or purpose for the rest of the season, except again to avenge his father. But that itself is brought up so infrequently in this season, really just in episode 8 and the finale. And also, this character basically just exists for lore and exposition, to tell Nia about her powers and the backstory of Wajira. As for good things, he's got a great design, voice, and also his relationship with his family, Kalmar and Trimar, is very interesting. I also enjoy his backstory, and I love the final fight between him and Kalmar. But I feel like this is not a bad character. I like him. He's okay, but he's a very weak character. He just doesn't really have much of a purpose in this story. Yeah, anyways, next up I want to discuss the Rulopians. They are pretty good, a pretty good faction. I like the designs, and I also like how there are actually distinct people in this army. There's Glutnus, who's the scientist, Gripe, who is the, I guess, right-hand man of Kalmar, and then you've got Trimar, he's cool too. It isn't just copy-paste the same design 9 million times, as in the case of the Skull Sorcerer's army. I do feel like the only failure is they never really get a proper conclusion. For example, who is the next king? What happens to Gripe? Do these guys stop worshipping Kalmar? Do they realize that they're in the wrong? So yeah, episode 5 is good, 6 is great, 7 is good, 8 is pretty good too. 9 to 11 is definitely the weaker area of this season. I really love that the Keepers were back. I fully expected them to be back, and it's great that they were. I feel like it would have been nice had they done more in this season. I don't like how easy of a choice it is, I guess, for them to give up the amulet. They give the fake amulet to Nia for safekeeping, which just seems totally out of character for them. They're perfectly capable of defending it themselves, and it would have been nice. Well, I know this is just more of a personal, I guess, missed opportunity, but I really would have loved if they had fought the Rulopians. You know, the Keepers were the tribe that protected their amulet. The Rulopians didn't. They gave it to Wajira. So imagine the Keepers frustrated at this. This season also has an Explorers Club and Antonia episode. These are both better than their originals in season 11 because I felt like they were more connected to the plot. We see the ninja, we see Kalmar. It didn't really feel like a poorly placed, I guess, block in the story of the season. I think that was kind of the case with the original Antonia episode. It just wasn't at the best spot in the season. And as for the first Explorers Club episode, personally not a huge fan. It just felt kind of too goofy and silly, but that's just my own personal preference. This one felt a bit more serious, again, more connected to the story. Of course, there are still silly elements, but it wasn't the entire episode. And I do like these episodes, just compared to the rest of the season, they are a bit weaker. I guess that just really shows how good this season is, though. Episode 12, also pretty good. I really love how this season has elements from all 4 previous Wild Brain seasons. The Explorers Club and Antonia/Nelson from 11, Prime Empire and Unagami from 12. In this episode, Vanya and Shintaro from 13. And, well, I don't really need to explain the connections to the island. It just feels very appropriate for the 10th anniversary. It feels like a great culmination of this first phase of Wild Brain Ninjago. Yeah, I'm a big fan of how many references to the past are included in Seabound. In many ways, though, the final 4 episodes of this season feel kind of like their own chapter. And this is basically a 44-minute finale. We get to see more of Wajira than we did of the Great Devourer or Preeminent. And this pays off. Personally, of all of the monsters of Ninjago, Wajira is my favorite of all time. It's because Wajira has a very complex backstory, a backstory which establishes her as one of the original evils of Ninjago. Also, she's got a great design, a great on-screen presence. I do feel, yeah, she's kind of generic, but personally I don't really mind. I never really expected anything more of her. And speaking of the backstory scene from episode 12 was great, animated beautifully. I feel like we haven't seen this kind of game-changing lore since Season 8, lore that really changes how we understand the creation of Ninjago. My only issue is that it feels like there's a fair number of plot holes, such as how is it possible that both Wajira and Nia had the element of water? But I feel like these aren't really too bad. They don't really change how I think or what I think of the backstory. And this really just leaves us with the final 2 episodes. This season's main fight is between Nia and Wajira, and I guess Kalmar too. And this is a good fight. It is done very well. Personally, it's not my favorite Wild Brave fight ever. That belongs to Cole versus the Skull Sorcerer. But where this episode may not be super epic in terms of fighting, it definitely makes up with the emotion. There are 2 scenes which I think is just perfect. Number 1 for episode 15 where Nia becomes water. It is just such a nice parallel of the scene from episode 5 where Jay sacrifices, he is willing to sacrifice his life to power out the bounty. I'm not a huge fan of that scene, it just feels very overdramatic, but it serves its purpose wonderfully. It shows how Jay is willing to sacrifice his life for Nia, as she does for him in the finale. Also a nice parallel to Skybound, where Nia was the one who was dead and Jay saved her, and here Jay is the one who's dying and Nia saves him. The music in this scene is fantastic, it is stunning, I love it. And then, secondly, there's the scene from episode 16 where Nia says goodbye to the team. This and Zane's death are the 2 saddest scenes of the entire series. This is different because we don't know what happened to Nia, or if she'll come back, rather. You know, in season 3, we know Zane is still alive at the end. And also, Nia is no longer herself. Yes, she's alive, but she's become a different person now and she's forced to leave. Jay is handled perfectly here. We see a serious side of him again. And the reason why I think Jay is awesome in this finale is, you know, a very similar reason as why he's great in season 6. His voice acting, I still believe Jay's voice is the best of the 6 Ninja. His ability, Michael Adamthwaite's ability to convey this comedic tone for Jay, but also at the same time, a very serious and somber tone. Just awesome. Nia's departure is handled perfectly. And the funeral scene, so nice to see so many familiar faces. And the final scene shows Nia in the water, still alive, and most importantly, happy, free. Seabound is just a wonderful Ninjago season. It is one of my all-time favorites, and I'm happy to give it a 9.5 out of 10. I just feel like this was an excellent focus for Nia. Also, consequences are back. Ninjago storytelling has never been better. Ever since a rocky 2019, I feel like the show has been gradually improving. And here we are. This is definitely one of the top Ninjago seasons. It's a season which I feel like is as good as stuff like Season 5, Season 6, and we're not even done yet. I mean, next year is going to be the Vegestone story. Ninjago is just going to continue to keep getting better. I'm just seriously impressed with this season. Huge bravo to the team for creating such an incredible story. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share with anyone and everyone you know. Share your thoughts on Ninjago, Seabound down below, and I'll see you guys next time.